if you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
We might be watching the establishment Republican collective do a complete 180 on positions that until now have helped define their entire platform. They used to claim that we do deserve to live where we grew up, to prevent us from leaving our cities, our states, our country, and making room for non-Americans to take our place. Now it's you probably don't deserve to live where you grew up, because they know that if America concentrated more of its resources to its own survival, rather than not just the survival, but the prosperity of the ruling class and foreign allies, we might actually stand a chance at living in financially inhabitable cities and states. Whatever happened to the importance of family? You don't think young people deserve to build lives within a 20-minute distance of their families and hometowns? All the things they once claimed to care about are slowly but surely getting tossed out the window of the sinking ship. He says if the opportunities are limited here, and that's not changing, as if the not changing part is beyond control, as if the very purpose of the Democratic Republic is not to enact the changes we all want to see. I wonder how establishment Republicans would react to this claim of, well, you just might not deserve to live where you grew up, applied universally, applied to, say, the country that has received over 20 billion American dollars in the past 2 years, so that the people who grew up there can continue to live there. Politicians and political pundits who live detached from the realities of their own rhetoric love to think that they're dropping hard truth bombs and pills that are difficult but necessary to swallow, when all they're really doing is revealing how out of touch they are with the world and how little of a shit they give about us.
Ben Shapiro has a message for all of the Americans who are struggling to survive right now. If you can't afford to live here, simply get out of the country. He doesn't mention fixing wages, lowering costs, or making life better for working families. He just wants us to leave the country. Take a look.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
So that's what they think about blue-collar Americans, the very people who build this country, power the economy, and keep everything running. This is the mentality of an elite bubble that has never struggled to pay rent or never had to work overtime just to stay afloat. Millions of families in this country are struggling right now, and it's not because they're lazy. It's because the economy has been rigged against workers for decades now, while the wealthy cash in at record levels. Let's talk about what actually matters. Wealth inequality in this country is the worst it's been since the Gilded Age. The billionaires have never been richer, and corporate profits are at record highs. Meanwhile, wages for working class Americans have barely budged in decades. And what has Trump done to fix all of this? Well, of course, hand out massive tax breaks to billionaires and corporations. Now inflation is on the rise yet again because of his ridiculous policies and incompetence, squeezing working families even more. But instead of addressing any of that or holding the billionaires accountable, their message is leave if you don't like it.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunity.
I can't wait until the skyline is lit by the flames of revolution. Did Ben Shapiro just tell Americans that if you can't afford to live in your country, then maybe you should go somewhere else? What I think is funny about Ben Shapiro is he's managed in a short amount of time to lose, well, he never really had the left, but he's managed to make the left hate him, and it's slowly becoming to the point where even the right doesn't like Ben Shapiro anymore. Like, they're starting to feel, I guess they're waking up, they're starting to feel a little disrespected by him. They feel patronized and preached to him, continuously saying that's anti this, this anti that. When isn't Ben Shapiro the one who always used to say facts don't care about your feelings? The only reason I didn't say the word because they will flag this video, but Ben Shapiro's the same guy who coined the term facts don't care about your feelings. But any criticism of him and his kind it's, oh, you hate us. Weren't you making fun of black people for years for saying, hey, that's a dog whistle, hey, that's racist what you're doing, hey, what you're doing is covert, right? Like, all that, he will always say facts don't care about your feelings. And then his audience, who heard him say that for years, have him start saying, oh, what you're doing is anti this, anti that, you hate my people. His audience is like, wait, you're the same guy who told us not to care about that stuff, but now you're doing it to us. So he's lost the right. We never had the left, but he has the left not like him. He's telling Americans that if you can't afford to be here, leave. At what point, I'm trying to find my words, I'm trying to choose the right words. At what point do Americans get angry enough, left and right, and they're just like, stop looking at each other and let's follow after the ancestors and throw some tea into the harbor? Like, I'm tired of seeing marches where it's like a choreographed, like, little march through downtown for a couple hours, and they're like, I don't like that, and we wave our rainbow flags or whatever. And then if the riot happens in your own neighborhood, when are we going? I'm not advocating for any type of violence or any type of destruction of property by any means. But if that was the case, why do it there? Why not go somewhere where it would make sense? Like where they are. You know what I mean? Where they are. But I don't know.
The age of Ben Shapiro is finally coming to an end. His most recent statement, essentially saying that you don't deserve to live where you want to live, is probably the final straw in everyone realizing that he's not a right-wing conservative person. Ben Shapiro has been and always will be is a capitalistic shill, but not the type of capitalism that you like. It's a type of capitalism that has no value on humanity whatsoever. It's a type of capitalism that views America as an economy and not a country. It's the type of capitalism that essentially views the human as an economic unit and nothing else. And his statement sums it up, because why should you have the right to stay near your family, stay where you grew up, stay where you are attached to? The irony is that the only other ideology that makes the human simply a mean of production and economic unit is communism. And that's why over time, Ben Shapiro is being pushed further and further away from the Republican Party and brand.
Ben Shapiro still does not get it. A clip of him from one of his most recent shows is going viral. And in that clip, of course, he's mad that Zohran Mamdani won the election in New York. And he's even more upset that young people voted for him. And he's complaining about it. He's crying about it. And in the clip, he's basically saying, if you voted for him based on affordability, maybe you shouldn't live in New York. In other words, he's saying young people shouldn't live in cities. Ben Shapiro still thinks he's relevant. It's the biggest issue about him. Thank God he's not, but he thinks he is. For a lot of conservative young men, I'll be the first to admit it, Ben Shapiro was a gateway drug. In 8th grade, I was watching Ben Shapiro videos. That's what pulled me into being a quote-unquote conservative. But as I grew up, I realized how fake it is, how disgusting his politics actually are. Because Ben's politics preach elites versus everyone else while pretending that capitalism can just run wild, and corporations go unchecked and greed go unchecked. That's exactly what destroyed American culture, the middle class, and the nuclear family he claims to defend. So when Ben says young people shouldn't live in cities, my question is very simple. Who are cities for then? Because they're not for retired folks. They're not for families raising kids. Cities are for young people, hustling, contributing, trying to make it out. Telling us that we don't belong in cities because we care about affordability, that's not conservatism at all. That's what we call elitism. That's elitist. They're saying, if you can't afford it, get out. That's what I mean when I say the old small government conservatism is dying. That movement is dying. When young people call themselves conservative now, they don't mean Ben Shapiro's conservatism. They mean right-wing populism, which is about the working class, which is about being anti-corporate and pro-culture. We want checks on big tech. We want a government strong enough to protect us and not protecting corporations. We want a system that doesn't turn us into permanent renters, debt slaves, and cultural bystanders. Ben Shapiro's model doesn't work anymore. He's outdated. His ideas represent nothing. He doesn't represent the new generation of conservatism. And the sooner he realizes it, the better. Because no one's going to start listening to him anymore. And he's only doing damage to the party and to the side that he so claims to be a defender of. He's the old way, and we won't stand for it anymore. Our generation's fed up with it. We want affordability, and the sooner you see that, the more successful the conservatives will be. If you don't do anything about it, Zohar Mamdani and his type keep winning elections.
There'll be so much joy at these state-run supermarkets. I'm not even kidding when I say that was one of Mamdani's proposals. He wants the city to run supermarkets because he believes that the profit motive is creating bad grocery choices in New York City, which is psychotic. Socialists have never been good at distribution of food. That's why they have bread lines in socialist countries. And Mamdani is not just a left-leaning Norwegian type. Mamdani is somebody who believes in the full-scale nationalization, the government running of the means of production. When we say he's a communist, he's an actual honest-to-God communist.
If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up, but the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that. The history of America is you go to a place where there is opportunity. And if the opportunities are limited here and they're not changing, then you really should try to think about other places where you have better opportunities.
Ben Shapiro is a fiscal conservative who's very concerned about our entitlement programs like Social Security, programs that we pay into as Americans, so we can maybe one day retire and not be destitute. He thinks that we spend too much money on that program and healthcare and all that. But when it comes to bribing Egypt to play nice with Israel, money well spent. $4 billion a year to Israel, money well spent. $30 billion since October 7th to help Israel commit its atrocities in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, money well spent. Our tax dollars working for us, the American people, what a waste. We're in debt. We're in debt. I'm not going to believe a single politician or pundit in this country, left or right, when they say they are concerned about our debt as they just funnel more and more of our resources to a foreign country.
Ben Shapiro built a career opposing identity politics as a proud Zionist.
Yeah.
Now you, listen, feel however you feel about Zionism. It's identity politics. Like that is the definition of you could not find a better example of a politics built on an identity. And yet you're out here saying facts don't care about your feelings. Identity politics is wrong. And then while you're saying that, your number one priority is this manifestation of identity politics. You can only keep that charade going for so long.
No, it's totally true.
Before someone sees through it.
There's something in people that the lowest part of people that instinctively accuses others of doing what they're doing.
They say that I want America to fight wars for Israel. Nope. First of all, Israel can take care of herself. That is why it is very important that the United States provide the material aid to Israel